I spent the first half of my career in management consulting, working for Fortune 500 companies. And very often we were asked to come in and create a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. We would bring in a dozen people, spend millions of dollars over many months, create a beautiful strategic plan. And that beautiful plan sat on a shelf and gathered dust. Now, why do you think that is? Why did we have so many smart people come in and do intense work, and yet that work went to nothing? It sat on the shelf, those beautiful binders sat on the shelf and gathered dust. It's not because we didn't do great work. It's not because we weren't thorough in handling the business. It's not because we didn't have buy-in. It's simply because 3 to 5 months after creating that strategic plan, the world changed. The world changed, and the leaders stopped holding each other accountable, as they should, stopped holding each other accountable for executing on that plan. So that plan sat on the shelf, gathered dust until 2 or 3 years later, somebody would say, hey, we need a new strategic plan. The process doesn't work. What I've learned over the last 15 or 20 years is that the answer is not creating a strategic plan every 3 to 5 years. The answer is in quarterly planning. The answer is in creating a plan that is long enough that we can get something meaningful done, but short enough that the world is probably not changing very much within that period of time. And we've got a fire up our butt. We've got some urgency to actually put our heads down and get the work done. Now, does that mean you never think further out than 90 days? Of course not. Part of the process of planning every 90 days is that in my planning and communication rhythm, once a year, we are looking out much further than that. And we're looking out at our core purpose that's almost never changing, our 10 to 15 year big, hairy, audacious goal, our 3HAG or our 3 year highly achievable goal, our 1 year goals and priorities. We're doing all those things, but what's most important, even in the annual planning session, what's most important is the quarterly plan, because it's in the quarterly plan that stuff actually gets done. So what I want to talk about is I want to get real practical in this episode, and I want to review with you what a quarterly planning session ought to look like. And I call them quarterly planning and education sessions. So let's talk first about the purpose. Then we'll talk about some logistics, and then we'll get into the specific agenda that you could use and obviously tweak for your own purposes. But we'll get to the specific agenda that you could use, and we'll spend most of our session talking about that agenda. But the purpose of the quarterly planning and education, a few things. Number one, and this is not in order of importance. Number one, it's to review last quarter's results to see what we could learn from last quarter's results. That's number one. Number two is to make decisions on key issues and key opportunities. Number three is to plan for the next quarter. And when I get to the agenda, we'll talk about what we're planning for the next quarter. And number four is to participate learning and development exercises. And I'll mention when we get to the agenda, one exercise in particular that's probably my favorite part of every quarterly planning session. So that's the purpose. Look at last quarter, make some decisions around issues and opportunities, plan the next quarter, participate in learning and development activities. Now, from a logistics standpoint, I believe this is at least one, ideally 2 days of work. And I don't mean 2 hours a day for, 7, 8 days. What I mean is literally taking a full day, or better yet, a full 2 days with the leadership team. And this meeting should be the CEO and the CEO's direct reports that make up the leadership team. Should be 1 or 2 days. Whether it happens on or off site depends. If you can do it on site without constant interruptions, if you can do it on site and not have 10-minute breaks turn into 25-minute breaks because everybody's getting hijacked in the hallway. If you could do it on site and have the conversations you need to have with flip charts and post-it notes all over the wall without the ability for other people to look in and see what's going on, because sometimes the conversations are not things you want to go outside of those four walls. If you could do all those things, then on-site is fine. Any of those things are a problem, do it off-site. Do it off-site where you get in a different room, you can think creatively, you have less interruptions, you can have the discussions you need to have. And wherever you have it, make sure there's wall space. Because if you do the quarterly planning session right, there will be flip charts and post-it notes all over the walls. I can remember many years ago, I had a client all proud of themselves that they went off-site and they found this beautiful old vineyard to have our quarterly planning session. And it was gorgeous, great lunch and all that stuff. But the room we had on the walls was a beautiful room. On the walls were these paintings in these beautiful frames. We could not put flip charts over the paintings. They did not allow us to take the paintings off the wall. So it actually was a horrible room to have our meetings, because we'd have discussions, we'd want to make decisions, we'd want to see things up on the wall, and we couldn't do that. So make sure you have wall space. Now, let's get into the agenda for the meeting. I'm going to take you step by step. The first thing you want to do in the agenda of this meeting, and I think this is the first thing you ought to be doing in a bunch of your meetings, is you want to go through good news. Good news is a wonderful way to start meetings. And I actually have my team talk about personal good news and business good news. Now, why do we do that? Is that just fluff at the beginning of a meeting? Absolutely not. It's a critical part of the meeting. The reason for good news is because as an individual and as a team, you get more of what you focus on. If you focus on good news, if you focus on opportunity, you're going to see more of that. If you focus on everything that's going wrong, and frankly, the rest of the meeting tends to be more about things that are wrong than things that are right. But if you focus on everything that's wrong, you're going to find more of what's going wrong. And your team's going to get burnt out very quickly. I've had teams that have had seemingly a horrible quarter, and they were all pretty down. They missed their revenue targets. They missed their profitability targets. They lost a number of clients. And when we start with good news, all of a sudden, air comes back into the room. And they start to realize it's not all bad. They're making some really good process that they could leverage. So you get more of what you focus on. Start with good news. Why personal good news? Why not just business good news? The reason for the personal good news is that it's a wonderful way to build relationships on the team, to build trust on the team. When you share good news, like we had a great weekend with my daughter visiting colleges, or, my mom got a clean bill of health, or, just had our first grandkid. Whatever it is, when you share that good news, you get to know the people on your team better. And you get to have those closer relationships that may start from good news, have that filter through everything else you do. So absolutely start with good news. The next thing on the agenda for the quarterly planning session is what I call pulse check or pulse check questions. Very often, the most important items on the agenda for a quarterly planning meeting are not formally on the agenda. And you'll hear the rest of the agenda over the next, 10 minutes or so. But very often, the most important items are not formally on the agenda. The most important items come from checking the pulse of how everybody on the team is doing. And I do that through 2 or 3 pulse check questions. I change those questions up each quarter. When I work with my clients, I've got an inventory of about 25 or 30 pulse check questions, but they're questions like, how are you feeling about the company right now? What's the number one issue we need to overcome? What's something we need to discuss, but we're afraid to? What's the biggest opportunity we'd like to move faster on? What's the biggest challenge our clients are grappling with? By asking 2 or 3 of those questions, and I do it with flip chart up on the wall, question on the flip chart, people are answering those questions through Post-it notes they're putting up on the wall. It's the way I like to do it. It's not the only way. But by going through the answers to those questions, we typically find the most important items we need to discuss. Now, it's very important how you go through the pulse check. When I first started doing pulse check, I would actually discuss every Post-it note and dive into detail. And all of a sudden, we'd be 3/4 through the first day before we'd come up for air. And we realized that we spent a whole lot of time talking about issues and opportunities, some of which weren't very important. And then we didn't have enough time to talk about the most important things. So what I suggest is that you go through those Post-it notes and you categorize those Post-it notes in a number of ways. And there are really 3 options when you hit a Post-it note. You look at a Post-it note, you spend maybe a minute talking about the answer to the question, what's the biggest challenge we have, as a company, or whatever the question is. And there are 3 things we do. Number 1, I ask, is this an action item? Is there an action we ought to take? Is this as simple as, we solve that by doing this by next Tuesday? Or let's grapple with this in a meeting we're going to have next Tuesday. So number 1, is there a specific action we should take? If that's the answer, we take the action. Number 2, is this a discussion item or something we need to add to our issues list for later in the agenda? And if it is, we write that issue down on a Post-it note, put it on our issues list. We'll get to it later in the agenda, and I'll talk about that when we get there. So number 1, is it an action? Number 2, is it something we need to add to our issues list? Number 3, is it a no action? No action means this is not important enough to talk about, so let's move on. Or no action could mean it's absolutely important, but we've already talked about it. We're already taking action on it. We don't need to spend any more time talking about it in this meeting. So is it an action item, or what I would call a who, what, when? Does it get onto our issues list, or is it a no action? That's how we get through our pulse check. So first item is good news. Second item is pulse check. The third item is reviewing your results from the previous quarter. How did you do on your financial KPIs? Your typical P&L, revenue, gross margin, net profit, cash flow. How did we do compared to our goals? Number 2, what about the non-financial KPIs? Things like client retention, things like talent density, things like our employee net promoter score or a client net promoter score. How many new clients did we bring on this quarter? All of those important key performance indicators. And I have a whole other episode on key performance indicators. I don't remember the number, but check out the list of Mike on the Mic episodes and you'll see one on key performance indicators. But we want to look at our financial and non-financial key performance indicators. We want to look at our rocks from the previous quarter. Now, rocks are 90-day priorities with accountability. So we want to go through and look at how did we do on our rocks from last quarter. Preferably, they are color-coded red, yellow, green. Green means success. Red means failure. Yellow means we are not quite there, but we wouldn't call it a total failure. So we want to look at our financial and non-financial KPIs. We want to look at our rocks for the quarter. And we want to look at any action items or who, what, whens we have outstanding. That's reviewing results from previous quarter. I don't like to spend a ton of time in the quarterly session on that. I want to spend more time looking forward than looking backwards. And if you're doing the rest of your meeting rhythm right, and again, in a previous Mike on the Mic episode, I talked about the weekly accountability meeting. If you're doing your weekly accountability meeting right, there shouldn't be a whole lot left to talk about because you're talking about how you're doing every week. Next thing we want to do is we want to go back and look big picture and take a look at our company's core ideologies. And I think of core ideologies as the three-legged stool of core purpose, core values, and your 10 to 15 year big, hairy, audacious goal. We're not recreating that every quarter, but every quarter we want to look back and say, how are we doing living those things? How are we doing living our purpose? How are we doing living our values? Are we continuing to make progress towards our big, hairy, audacious goal? And we want to take a look at our 3HAG, our 3-year highly achievable goal. Who and what do we want to become? What are the numbers we want to hit? What are our differentiators? Are we moving forward towards that 3-year? Again, every quarter, we're not recreating our 3-year, but we want to take a look at how we're doing moving towards the 3-year. Next thing we want to do is we want to check on our leadership team health and our talent development. So from a leadership health standpoint, there may be exercise we're doing to build trust, build empathy, maybe some things from the 5 dysfunctions of a team. I'm a big Patrick Lencioni fan. What are we doing to build our leadership team health? Number one, and number two, our talent assessment and talent development. This is a key part of the quarterly meeting. Again, I talk about this in another Mike on the Mic episode, doing our quarterly talent assessment, understanding who in our organization, who of our direct reports are performing as an A level, B level, C level, toxic C level. What actions should we take? And holding folks accountable to those actions. I'm going to keep that real short. The talent assessment and a calculation I call talent density is going to be the topic of my next book. There's a whole lot to say there, but watch the episode on the quarterly talent assessment and you'll get the idea. So good news, pulse check, reviewing results from last quarter. That's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4 is the core ideologies and the 3-year plan. Number 5 is leadership team health and talent development. Number 6 is to participate in some executive education to keep the ideas flowing and to keep the ideas growing within the business. So is there a new tool, a new technique, a new strategy tool? Is there some learning? I actually had a client where every quarter someone on the leadership team was tasked with coming in and teaching the rest of the team something. Sometimes it was as simple as sharing a TED Talk with the rest of the team, but you should be learning and growing together as a team. That's number 6. Number 7 on the agenda is to collaborate on a strategic opportunity or hit some number of issues and discussion items. If you remember from back on agenda item number 2, which was pulse check questions, some of the answers to the pulse check resulted in items we've added to our issues list. And if you're doing this right, you probably have an ongoing issues list that you haven't hit. In item number 7 on the agenda, we're going to go through these items and we're going to say, hey, given how much time we have, maybe there are 2, 3, 4 items from the issues list we can tackle. In some cases, it will be we're going to make decisions about these issues. In some cases, it's about brainstorming, gathering more information so a decision could be made post the meeting. But very often, it's right here in this collaboration on a strategic opportunity or a discussion of some number of issues from the issues list. Very often, these are the most important discussions you will have as a leadership team. And very often, it drives the next item and most important item on the agenda, which is planning your next successful quarter. And what I mean by that, and this is typically, a good portion of day 2 when I do a 2-day planning session, it's at the very least the afternoon, if not late morning into the afternoon of day 2, where we're planning the next quarter. Now, in planning the next quarter, we're going to start out by looking back a little bit. We're going to look at our annual priorities. And let's say we're in Q2 or Q3 or Q4 of the year. We're going to look back at our annual priorities, and there should be 2, 3, or 4 annual priorities for the company. And we're going to say, are these still the right annual priorities? We're now 1, 2, 3 quarters into the year. Chances are pretty good things have changed. So we might say, yes, these annual priorities are still great, or we might tweak them, or we might make wholesale changes to the annual priorities. That's critical to do in the quarterly planning meeting because our quarterly rocks, our quarterly priorities, and again, I call them rocks, 90-day priority is a rock. Your quarterly rocks ideally should be the next 90-day chunk of your annual priorities. So if your annual priorities are just not the right priorities anymore, you're either going to wind up with the wrong rocks, or at the very least, those annual priorities are not going to be helpful in driving the rocks. So we want to, number 1, make sure we get the annual priorities right. Number 2, we want to create our quarterly rocks. What are the 2, 3, 4 most important rocks for the quarter? And we want to plan for our financial and non-financial KPIs. I talked about that when we talked about reviewing the results from last quarter, the financial and non-financial KPIs. Again, there's a whole other episode that talks about KPIs, but it's number 8 on the agenda, which is all about planning that next quarter rocks and KPIs. Last thing on the agenda, I call cascading communication. Cascading communication, very simply, is agreeing as a team, and I normally make a yes column and a no column, agreeing as a team, what do we absolutely need to proactively communicate out to the rest of the organization that we discussed over the last day or 2? Do we want to tell everybody else what our quarterly rocks are? Did we make a decision on an issue that we need to proactively communicate to the rest of the organization? What are the yeses? What do we need to proactively communicate out to the organization? And just as importantly, what are the no's? What did we talk about that needs to stay in the room? Like the quarterly talent assessment. You're absolutely not going to go out and tell everybody who was an A, who was a B, who was a C, who was a toxic C. But what else did you talk about? Maybe there's an issue out on the issues list that you didn't make a decision on, and until you make a decision, you don't want to talk about it with the rest of the organization. Maybe you talked about some cost cutting and some layoffs that need to happen that are not going to get communicated until you're ready to communicate them. So cascading communication is important. So there were 9 items on the agenda. Good news, pulse check. Number 1, good news. Number 2, pulse check. Number 3, reviewing last quarter's results. Number 4, looking at core ideologies in your 3-year plan. Number 5, checking on leadership team health and talent development. Number 6 is participating in executive education and development. 7, collaborate on a strategic opportunity, or 2 or 3 discussion topics. Number 8, planning a successful quarter. Number 9, cascading communication. Now, the biggest excuse I see for not taking a day or ideally 2 days aside to do this is we don't have the time. We can't afford to take our 6 most important leaders from the organization and pack them away into a conference room for 2 days, take them away for the business so we can work on the business and talk about these things. Well, if that's your biggest excuse, I also want you to realize that's your biggest reason for doing it. If you are so focused working in the business, if you and the rest of your leaders are so focused in the weeds of working in the business that you can't afford to take the time to work on the business and step back for a day or 2, that's a problem. That means your leaders aren't acting like leaders yet. That means your direct reports are not managing themselves the way they should, or maybe they can, you just don't trust them enough to do that. So I'd argue your biggest excuse for not doing this is your biggest reason for biting the bullet and doing it. So when are you going to have your next quarterly planning session? Good luck.